Good evening, TheoTrade. This is Corey Rosenblum, and you're watching the TheoTrade nightly video for the 20th of January on a very monumental and very news-filled day. Let's get started. There's a few things I want to highlight in tonight's video. First is going to be Netflix. We're going to take a moment to look at its expected move targets, and its actual earnings. That just came out after the bell, and Netflix is quite a bit down. That is not the number one headline. Outside of Netflix, there was sharp movement in Peloton, and they are halting temporarily production of their treadmills and bikes. That sent that stock much lower. But the third headline is economic news, and of course the markets are breaking critical support levels, and this time is different. The first time we can say that with some confidence. This time is different. Bonds are up, VIX up, and of course equities down. Let's start with Netflix. So what we're looking at here is our TheoTrade expected move indicator, taking a look at the front month options. And from that, the expected move took us up to roughly speaking, 550, or down to about 460. Currently, at the time of the video, shortly after the market closed, we're seeing Netflix shares trade not into, but under that option-based expected move, which took us to about here. That's where it paused and then shattered. So at the moment, Netflix trades about $4.10 per share, which is down quite a bit. Can't see it there, but after the market hours, after the close. That will be a headline going into Friday. Similarly, we had headlines or news events, wasn't so much earnings, in Peloton. So Peloton is a stock that does have a persistent downtrend, lower lows, lower highs, and falling moving averages, but news came out today. News broke that they are at least temporarily halting production. There's a lot of other news events going on, but that is enough to send this stock plunging from 32 per share down to about 23, and they halted that stock temporarily in today's session. Peloton closed at the lows of the day at about 24 per share, which is down about almost 25% from the high. And if that wasn't enough, once again, we can take a look at while we're on the topic, on the intraday charts versus the daily. This is our S&P. We'll take that move indicator off and just look at the daily chart. So I'll come back to this in a moment and talk about those moving averages on the equity futures. But while we're on the topic again of intraday charts, intraday movement, and the sell-off, this is the S&P. And this is our regular trading hours. It was actually a trend up in the morning session. Hit that 4590 target, just shy of the 4600. Look at your screen. S&P is trading down after hours, at least, just under 450, 4450. And that is just a little under where the daily chart closed. Again, this is the after market hours. Seeing a little touch of a rally, but that's not the important part. This is the important part. From the session high to about the closing low, I have to scale our chart, was roughly 154. See it here, 154 S&P points, which is about 3%, what we'd call high to low, or the top of the market, top of the range, down to the bottom of the range. NASDAQ will fall in that same category. And that traded down. This is our daily chart. Again, we'll come to that in a moment. But from the top of the session in the morning down to the closing low, the NASDAQ, of which Netflix is a part, was down 4% from top to, or high to low. And that's over 600 NASDAQ points. That's from high to low. You won't see that in the chart up here. You'll see it down 300 in terms of the metrics. But looking at high to low, that's a little higher. Dow Mini Futures, quickly moving through it. Similarly, 35.4 down to 34.5. So again, these are levels that if you're not trading intraday, you might be missing. But it's good to reference the Dow from high to low fell about 800, almost 900 points. And finally, with this topic, we'll finish up with our Russell, which similarly, we'll come back to all of these in a minute. But the Russell fell from high to low. Mid-session high to about the closing low was about 84 points, or 4%. So you'll see on the headline news, you'll see in your favorite financial media that the market was down, and here's what our percentages are. 1%, 2%, 1%, 1.7%. At the same time, crude was down 1.5%. The VIX, the volatility futures, VIX itself was up 1.74. The bond market was up a little bit. And of course, our sectors, all but the utilities, were red. Key stocks were in the red today too. And we just saw Netflix and Nvidia, in terms of its daily chart, is breaking support. So let's look at the top stocks that were on the downside in today's session. Lowe's broke support. Ford, which was a high flyer, just came off those highs. Qualcomm is a significant fall from its 190 per share down under key support levels at about 175. Dow Chemical. Now there's Amazon. Could this be breaking the support level? This is critical. All these things are extremely important to watch. So let's pull back Amazon. We'll do the same thing with the Russell in a moment. But just taking a look at the sideways trading range, and we'll actually adjust that trend line to here. So the prior support low, this is something I've had on the charts here at Thinkorswim for the better part of a year, really more than a year, labeling out about 3,000 as a lower bound of support and roughly 3,500 at the upper bound of resistance, with a little bit of a more bullish tinge to the market just recently. But Amazon took a fall, and that is down about 2% in 3% actually, $100. But again, that focal point is going to be 3,000. That's just looking at Amazon. Intel, which is also in a trading range, just came down inside of it. And the list goes on. General Motors, Home Depot, Texas Instruments, ConocoPhillips, Caterpillar, and the like. Let's talk about that Russell. So that Russell has been similar to Amazon and other shares in a trading range. And that reference level has been about 2,100 or 2,125. That makes the midpoint about 2,225 and the upper about 2,325. We know this can't last forever. And in fact, that little range broke into November, but the price came right back in. We have a similar situation where the market has traded outside of those trend lines, has broken to the downside, and this is actually a new 52-week low. The last time we saw the print near $2,000 in the Russell was at the very beginning of 2021. And of course, we'll go back to 2020 to see the last time the market rotated or rallied in to that 2,000 index level. 3 days in a row is enough to crack beneath on high volume. That is something to play to the downside. The Dow Mini Futures, again, it seems to be in an uptrend, but I've been noting that this is more of a sideways trend. It as well is breaking to the downside. So that is a new all-time high, just shy of 37,000. Now the Dow trades into 34, almost 600. Again, we'll be watching this very closely on Friday. Signatures that this was a very good likelihood did come, we've noted this in prior sessions, prior videos, from volume. The bull volume across the board was getting weaker, and the bear volume before the fall, before the drop, was getting stronger. And that does set in motion the concept that this time is different. This time could very well be very different. Again, just repeating prior videos, as the S&P, the NASDAQ, and other stocks went to the upside, the green volume went down, and the red volume went up. These type of signatures, or these type of supply-demand, as they show up with volume, tend to precede sell-offs. It just tells what the insiders or the bigger traders, or at least the majority of shares, the bulk of the shares trading, are actually on the sell side. Might call this distribution. And finally, the Russell, again, we just saw it as it plays lower. Now, again, so much happening. Crude oil, although it pushed to a new swing high, new 52-week high in today's session, that also has a bearish potential. That would go also to the energy sector as well, which has been very resilient. And if we compare that to the technology sector, XLK, that has actually gone down almost every day, but a few in the new year. Energy, on the other hand, with the exception of a few, has gone up every day in the new year. I mentioned Peloton. Just to highlight it again on the downtrend, we look at price on the trend, and we also look at volume. So same metric, same logic. When something is peaking or topping, or potentially reversing in terms of a broader trend, we'll see the green volume decline and the bear or the red volume pick up. And that is the persistent signal that happened throughout the sell side activity in 2021 for Peloton, and that continued all through November December, and now we have the surprise announcement that they're stopping or temporarily halting their production, and that was obviously received very poorly, bearishly, by the equity market, and that pushed the stock Peloton to lows not seen since about March of 2020, and that's what they called the bid. And as the opposite side took place, Peloton shares are now seen at those prior lows. We could say similar concepts or similar logic about Zoom Technologies, ZM, that caught the similar bid, but just like the others, Peloton and some of the other names, that is reaching down to a new 52-week low. So we're already 10 minutes in the video, and all these headlines are coming into focus. Plenty more headlines out there. Please be careful. Please be safe. We'll see you Friday with more commentary, more trades, more ideas, and into the next week. As always, be careful and safe. This is Corey Rosenblum with tonight's Theo video update for January 20th, a big day in 2022.